The person we have here today is Mrs. Amelia Boynton Robinson. And Mrs. Robinson is 97 years old. She was born in Savannah, Georgia, and left Georgia and went to Alabama, attended Tuskegee University, graduated from there, came back to Georgia, taught in Georgia for a while, and then ended up in Selma, Alabama, where she met her sweetheart in Tuskegee, and they subsequently got married and moved to Selma in 1930 or so. And Mr. and Mrs. Boynton wanted justice. They went into Selma and they found a lot of what we have right here in Macon. People not knowing their rights, people being afraid, people being intimidated by power, people not being able to vote, being arrested for having the audacity to just stand up and speak out about it and that kind of thing. So the Boyntons decided that they were going to get out into the rural area, a thing that she had done with her grandmother back in when she was about 9 years old.
1920.
1920 or so. She would jump off the horse and buggy and run up to the house and pass out literature and encouraging people to vote and instructing them how to vote way back then. But when they got to Selma in 1930, discovered, 10 years later, that people in Selma hadn't even broken out of the box to even realize that they could register to vote. So she then decided, and her husband decided to get out there and teach them what their rights were. Well, that angered a lot of people because the question to them was, who are you all to come up in here ruining our way of life? Well, that's what I hear in Macon. Who is this guy you guys have brought in here that's messing with our way of life? And this is 2009. They had a business, an insurance business, a good insurance business, and the power to be went to work on them, to break them. You either stop doing what you are doing, or we will not allow your business to flourish. And they didn't stop doing what they were doing. The powers to be did exactly what they did. If a person came in and brought insurance from their business, then they went and tried to use it for some purpose. That business person will tell them, well, you got insurance from the wrong company. You go back and cancel that insurance, and you go to another insurance company, and you bring us back another insurance, and then we will let you do business here. Well, that didn't set too good with either one of them. So they continued to do what they were doing, Mr. and Mrs. Boynton, and then the heat stepped up because one of the good old boys came in one day with a big long stick, and he was going to beat down Mr. Boynton in the office. Well, somebody took the stick. Guess who took the stick? She took the stick. And husband begged her then, please don't beat him with the stick. And she adhered to her husband's better judgment and didn't beat him with the stick. But the husband said, give him his stick back. She gave him his stick back. He went outside, broke all the plate glass windows out. Police department right across the street from their business. Didn't make any difference. They kept on doing what they were doing. Didn't make any difference. Now, a movement started because people started to listen. Professional people, though, like teachers and others, they found it hard to think about jeopardizing their jobs, to get out there with them, to talk about teaching anybody anything about some voting or whatever. So Mrs. Boynton and Mr. Boynton started having meetings. And then they started going to the courthouse and walking up to the courthouse saying, you all come on, let's go register. People would walk up and want to register. Sheriff Jim Clark, Sheriff Jim Clark, Sheriff Jim Clark. Called her on the street one day and told her to get off the street and get over there with those other Negroes. She said, no, I'm going back to my office. He said, no, I say get over there with those other Negroes. She said, I am going back to my office. So on that pamphlet that was passed out, and we'll make sure that you guys get one, You'll see Sheriff Jim Clark got her jacked up in the back of her clothes and in the bottom of her belt, bum rushing her down the street. Well, he locked her up. And Sheriff Jim Clark, listen to me very carefully. Sheriff Jim Clark did exactly what Chief Thomas Michael Burns did. Sheriff Jim Clark messed with the wrong woman. Just like Chief Michael Burns have messed with the wrong police officers. Because we got police officers who are saying enough is enough, and you just cannot keep on treating us like babies you don't like anymore, so you throw them out with the bathwater. But then came the time that they saw that they could no longer help. That's what Officer Calloway did. Officer Calloway said, I've watched about a half dozen of my fellow officers and friends get fired for little or nothing. And there's something wrong with that. So I've got to go somewhere and I've got to get somebody to help us do what we need to do. So he got in contact with sources who got in contact with me, and we came together and we started a Chief Thomas Michael Burns movement in order to show that he messed with the wrong set of police officers. And then Bernard Lafayette and this woman sitting right here and her husband persuaded Dr. King that a movement could kick off in Selma because Sheriff Jim Clark was so arrogant, so mean, and so hard-headed that he was going to keep on doing stuff that would add fuel to that movement. Well, Martin Luther King and crew had looked at Birmingham and places and thought them to be better. But they didn't know Jim Clark.